right, welcome back to Gear Talk Podcast, where we are connecting reliability professionals with reliable information. Today I'm excited because we have Levi Heilman here with KCF Technologies, and we're going to learn a little bit about his journey into reliability, understand how people, succeed when it comes to remote monitoring. And Levi, I really appreciate you stepping in here. Part of this podcast is we really want to connect the people that are viewing and listening to this with the individual. So if you mind giving us a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah, totally. Thanks for having me. So as you said, my name is Levi Heilman. I am, originally from the Philadelphia area. Went to Penn State University, specifically for mechanical engineering. A first generation college student, actually.
There you go.
And I had some older siblings that went to Penn State. Kind of had that path that existed for me, and went and checked out mechanical engineering just because I was mechanically inclined. Grew up working on cars with my dad and all that kind of stuff, and knew that it offered a lot of options as a career. Right?
Sure,
you could go in a bunch of different directions with mechanical, and so I went there. And funny enough, Penn State actually has a partnership with KCF Technologies.
Right.
Our founders came out of the acoustics program. Actually, started the acoustics program at Penn State University, and our PhDs in engineering and vibration, and so there was a natural synergy there.
Kind of a connection that existed.
Yeah, with the university and KCF, and did my senior capstone project in collaboration with KCF, and so I kind of knew about them a little bit, but didn't really know much about the world of reliability or the world of maintenance.
So even with your project, you were still just kind of dipping the toe in maybe a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely knew about sensor technologies, right? That was a huge focus in my time at Penn State. But in terms of, the practical application, it was a new world. It was a different world. And starting at KCF and really getting engaged with manufacturing, I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know the realities of the world versus, again, what you see in the textbooks and what you hear about with, precision practices. And I instantly fell in love with it. The idea that I can look at a graph on a computer monitor and call my customer on the other side of the country and help make sure their day doesn't go south was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And, my first week on the job, I was sitting down with director of operations level people at our customers talking about their maintenance programs and their reliability programs, and didn't know, what other maybe career path would offer the ability to have impact at such a young age.
Right.
Yeah, and so getting that experience, getting that exposure, really kind of gave me a bug for impacting people, and so that, I believe, is maybe a different perspective on the maintenance and reliability world, the predictive technologies world, machine health world. Is sensors are awesome, sensors are great. Spec sheets go on forever. We can talk about every detail and get caught up in the details.
Yeah.
But a lot of those details don't matter if it's not positively impacting somebody.
Well, it's the human factor, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where, getting into reliability, even, started my reliability career. I came from a maintenance background, kind of understanding, been on tools. It sounds like a very similar upbringing. Mine was on a farm, though, working on stuff. And it was just one of those things, all right, things break. They have to be fixed. You try to do it in a good job to where they don't break down again, but then trying to truly understanding, all right, how does this impact an organization? It's a lot different than a family farm when you're talking about multi-million, multi-billion-dollar industries that get out there. But the people, I haven't ever run into someone that's maliciously doing something to cause harm. A lot of times they either just don't know, or they can't see the forest for all the trees because it's the way we've always done things.
Yeah. They're doing it the way the last guy did it, and the way that they were taught when they got out of school and entered into the facility. And challenging that, a lot of times is difficult. It's a very difficult conversation to step in and say, hey, I know you've been doing it this way for the last 20, 30 years, but what if we try things a different way? What if we take this data to help inform our decisions? If we do that, a lot of times you're met with skepticism originally.
Oh, sure.
When you get into that case, but letting the systems prove themselves and encouraging our customers to give it a fair shake when they're trying it out is some of the most fun that I've ever had, because you really overcome a lot of barriers. You're opening people's eyes to what's possible. And, I mean, there's a reason they don't use manual wrenches on automotive assembly lines anymore, right? They're using impact guns, and the reason that is because it gets you to the solution a lot faster.
Sure.
You know, and
there's some controllable stuff there too. You know, as far as torque settings and everything that can be done. I find it interesting when you hear people, meeting things with skepticism and stuff. And I think this is true in every industry, right? Reliability isn't the only place that you find this, and especially sensors isn't the only place that you find this.
Right.
But it seems like there's been so much hype about Industry 4.0 and these sensors and automation and everything that so many people have now started to tune it out, and you almost have to break through and be like, okay, no, I'm not promising you the moon. I'm just going to take you this much better, this much closer to that state.
Yeah, it's huge. The marketing around Industry 4.0 in general, and the buzzwords, single pane of glass, all these kind of things, right?
That's
that
right.
You hear are, I think, associated with kind of black magic in a lot of people's minds, right? I don't understand how this is going to work, but I saw it in Star Trek, and it could actually save us time. It's state of the art, whatever it is. But again, as we were discussing before, if the solution doesn't have immediate impact on your reality, then it might not be the right fit for you.
Yeah.
And my personal focus at KCF is people are the solution every time.
Yeah.
We have tools that we can equip people with, and we have the opportunity to help them make decisions differently. But people are always the solution. And if you come into, for me as a partner type relationship with a plant, if there's any adversarial reality in that partnership, it's not going to work.
No.
I can't force you to do anything.
Effective.
Not be as effective. Exactly. I can't force you to do anything.
Right.
And I also can't go tell your boss when you're not doing the thing that I want you to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't work unless we have solid back and forth. We trust each other. You know that if one of my analysts or myself, we're calling you about a problem, that it's real and we have a reason to. And the reality, we made the metaphor earlier of the emergency room, right? Or the hospital. You have to stop the bleeding before you can do the rehab and the physical therapy and all the things you need to do to be healthy, right?
Yes.
And a lot of times, to extend that analogy further, what's marketed to the facilities is the Olympic athlete, right?
A far cry,
right.
different than what they are right now.
Exactly. And so you can't write a check for a solution and become the Olympic athlete.
Right.
There's a lot of hard work there and a lot of mental and emotional battles that exist as well within the plants to get there. And that's not what we're looking for. That's not what America needs, and that might not even be the most efficient and effective use of their dollar.
Sure.
The thing that will be is what's going to get them functioning to a healthy state, and then also what's going to get them home on time. What's going to do the things that it needs to do for their mental health and for their family and for their home life. Like, we want there to be a balance.
I've walked through plants where you see boxes upon boxes of, maybe it's robots, inspection robots, maybe it's sensors and stuff like that. That who knows how many commas were in that check that they wrote for those things,
right.
And they're just stuck in a corner somewhere. And it's one of those things. We'll eventually get to it, or that was this guy's idea and he's not here anymore, so we just forgotten about it. And you want to talk about an impact? Just trying some of this stuff. Just moving the needle a little bit. Usually results in a pretty good gain.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it only works if, one, the people are invested in it, and they understand that from top to bottom. It can't just be the idea of a guy on the maintenance team. For this thing to have broad scale, it's also got to have broad, engagement. And so, if the maintenance team's deciding, hey, we're going to change our PM protocol here because the data is telling us that every 3 months this filter clogs up, or every, 6 months we see high frequency noise on this bearing, and it's probably a lubrication issue.
Right.
If we see that kind of thing, are you willing to say, yes, we've been doing it this way for 40 years, but now we're going to make decisions based on this data rather than the way Hank used to do it?
Right. How do you reconcile, because everything you're talking about, is emotional intelligence, it's human relationship. You went to school for engineering.
Yeah.
So did I. So I understand that that's not taught a lot.
Yeah.
So, what was that learning curve kind of coming into saying, all right, most engineers, they're like, I'm going to design a solution.
Yeah.
We're going to make something, whether it be mechanical, electrical, or something to do the job. But then you realize, man, the human component is the most critical aspect of it.
100%. That, I think, was a light bulb moment for me coming out of school, was an understanding that, again, if people don't care about the solution, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? If it doesn't actually solve a problem for them, it doesn't matter. And so the key subject of that statement is people, not the solution.
Right.
We were talking about my background a little bit at Penn State. I'll take it even further. So I grew up as one of 14 siblings.
Oh,
so
wow.
I have 8 sisters and 5 brothers. And growing up, as you can imagine, it's a very different upbringing than the average kid. But for me, the only child was the weird thing, right?
Yeah.
That was the thing that was like, how did you grow up that way?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that, if you don't have the ability to communicate in an environment where you're dealing with that many people, you recognize very quickly that, like, oh, you can
You have to go out and garner support from your siblings.
Yeah, you can have the latest and greatest, right? You can figure out any number of things. But again, if people don't care about it, it doesn't matter. And I think I just got, in some cases, 14 times the exposure to that reality growing up. And then too, I definitely can't claim emotional intelligence for myself at all, because my wife is brilliant, and in the ways that I learned how to be emotionally intelligent, I credit her with most of that. And certainly take those lessons and understand, okay, this maintenance manager's thinking this way because this, or you don't know. You don't know what he's coming from. You don't know what his family situation is. You don't know what what just happened that morning. Did he blow a transmission on his truck? Like, anything could have happened.
Right.
And so coming into relationships with customers with that understanding, I think is perhaps the most critical thing, because again, they're not just a number, right? They're not just an email that you get. They're not a phone call that you get. They're a person.
Not robots with no emotion or no feeling or
anything. Exactly. And if you can break down that barrier, some of my favorite phone calls come from my customers, right?
Yeah.
And most of the time we don't talk about work, right? We get to an understanding of what they did over the weekend, or what their kids are up to, or whatever it is, and then it leads into a relationship built on trust, where now, hey, if I'm telling you this really critical piece of equipment is a problem, it's not because I want some kind of gain, right?
Yeah.
It's not because I want to be the hero. It's because I want to make you the hero, and I want you to understand that, like, we can prevent a crisis situation from ever occurring by just doing a simple tweak right now. You know what I mean, or whatever it is. So, yeah, the communication component. Again, it's. I wish it's something that they taught more.
Yeah.
In school, because I know so many engineers that perhaps just haven't focused enough energy there. And again, we can come up with the best solutions, but if we can't communicate them effectively, then we're missing the mark.
And that's not to downplay the creative type that is going to build a machine or something like that that's actually going to improve. It's connecting those two things.
Yeah.
That's the one thing coming out of school for me was actually understanding how to interface with people, because there is no relationship management course or anything,
no,
right?
Not at all.
I mean, we took engineering, economics, and ethics and stuff like that, but that's the only, if you want to call it, people aspect of it that really existed.
Yeah, my perspective on it is it's a two-part deal. Communication is both the content and the delivery. Right?
Sure.
You have what you want to talk about, or what you want to present to a group, or whatever it is, and how well you deliver it. I have a reputation at the company for spending a lot of time on PowerPoint presentations.
Okay.
And maybe going a little bit over the top, and adding details in the presentation that might catch your eye and have no actual substance to them at all. But they pull enough of your attention in to make you pay attention to the content.
Okay.
And I think the same thing is true, whether that be dealing with our customers, whether that be on a phone call, whatever.
Yeah.
You got to have both. You got to have quality content that people care about, and you have to be able to deliver it effectively.
Yeah.
If you can't do both of those things, then there's maybe more to be had in the ability to communicate. And so that's something I wish was focused on a lot more in the universities. It's just the guys that are communication managers have that nailed down.
Yeah.
But there's a subset of the population that need to understand maybe very difficult and technical things, but they need to be able to receive the content with quality delivery.
Now, let's flip this around. So here's you talking about, here's how I'm going to deliver the content. So how has this impacted you as a person being on the receiving end of that?
Yeah.
Are you more open-minded? You're going to ask, deeper questions. I mean, what are these impacts that you've seen, kind of in your daily life with this?
Yeah. I mean, for me, the recognition of you don't know where that person just came from is always true.
Yeah.
That's true in your personal life. That's true in every environment that you're in. That's true in the restaurant that you're eating at. That's true in the store that you walk into. You don't know where that person's been, and to make an assessment of an individual based on a single interaction isn't fair, and it's not fair to anybody. And my customers taught me that, for sure. So I think that's a huge thing, and I think too, as far as the communication piece goes, that's 100% valid in every interaction that you have, regardless of where you are. And oftentimes, if there's a misunderstanding, it's very, very, very important in marriage, obviously. Well, if there's a misunderstanding, maybe my gut reaction, which wasn't my gut reaction before, is, did I make that clear? Did I communicate that well?
There's two sides to all of this.
Exactly, And so I think that's such an important point across the board is look internal first. Look at yourself and say, was I effective in communicating what I was trying to? Do I care about that person enough to refine the communication before I give it to them? Right? Am I just blasting them with information? Going back to being an analyst at KCF, am I just going to tell them that there's an elevated frequency at 382 hertz, and it probably means there's an interrace defect or something like that, and just leave it there? Or am I going to take the characteristics of that analysis and apply it to their world and say, more than likely there's a physical defect on the bearing. This means that there's irreversible damage that's only going to get worse over time. I would encourage you to replace that bearing on your next outage. Right?
Yeah.
Like, those are both true.
Yeah.
Both very true things.
How it's presented.
But what the customer does with that information is wildly different. And that's a huge focus for us at KCF is characteristic analysis, right? Understanding that we can do the traditional analysis and dive into every specific frequency, and we do that. But we can't present it that way, right? We can't just give, the maintenance guy that's been on the plant for 12 hours and maybe needs more coffee than he's had or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
super technical.
Just give him a frequency and say, hey, do with this what you will. No, we gotta dial in to what actually is actionable out of the information. One of our leaders at the company coined a phrase that we've been using pretty often within our organization is right data, right analysis, right action.
Okay.
Right? The data is the data, right? The sensors aren't smart. They're giving you what they give you, and that's all that they give you. The analysis is the critical portion because you have to do the analysis that leads to the right action.
Right.
And a lot of times, we'll dig into the analysis in such a technical manner, just across the board as engineers, as vibration, analysts and technicians, that we forget that action still has to be taken. Right. So whatever outcome, whatever insight I pull out of that data, I have to be able to give it to somebody in a format that they can take action on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're running low on time here, but I want to be a good host here. Kind of, last things, last shots that you'd want people to take away. I think it's been great.
Yeah.
Communication is key.
Yeah.
Garnering support. But go ahead.
No, I think just reiterating the fact that, again, people are the solution every time. And when you think about, whatever's popular in the world today in terms of marketing and buzzwords and the things that throw out there, if it's not important to people, it's not going to matter. Yeah. And it's not going to have the outcome that maybe the right solution would have. And so for me personally, as well as my time at KCF and what our organization focuses on, it's technology that elevates people.
Yeah.
And if we're not elevating people, we're missing the mark.
Not technology for technology's sake.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Has to solve a problem, has to improve someone's quality of life, and in some cases, thousands of people's quality of lives, right? And that's the fun part for me is seeing how broad the impact is, but it has to, again, be technology that elevates people.
Good. People can find you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, totally. You can find me personally on LinkedIn. You can find KCF on LinkedIn as well as kcftech.com. And reach out. I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Well, it's been great having you on here. I really appreciate the insights. It's always great to hear someone, kind of coming from the engineering background, getting into the field. I can't get enough of that. So.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for having me.
And for everyone else joining us, thank you so much for joining us here at Gear Talk. As always, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. And you can always send us any comments or any topics that you'd like us to discuss further at podcast@nori.com. I'll catch you next time here on Gear Talk. I'm Wes Cash. Thanks for joining.